So we get to hear from another lovely British accent for our next case study, and that will be Phil Stewart, who is the creative director of Preloaded. He'll be talking about another Channel 4 Education commissioned game, this one called The End, about a pretty unexpected topic, death. So in the UK, 2/3 of teens are agnostic or atheist, and how to think about how to approach this difficult topic that we need to understand. So Phil's going to talk a little bit about their design approach, as well as the interesting things that they've learned about their community through the 11+ years of nonstop play that has already happened on the game.
Thanks, Jing. Hey, guys. Yeah, like she said, I'm Phil Stewart, I'm the creative director of Preloaded. So today I'm going to talk to you about The End, but before I do, I thought I'd just give you a little bit of background, some context about the studio and what we do and what we believe in. So this is our studio. We've been going for about 12 years, which in kind of game studio term is about like 100 years. There's about 20 of us, split typically, fairly typically to like kind of game studio structure. So we've got art, we've got design, we've got development, we've got production that sits over the top. We talk a lot about games with purpose. So I know Jesse yesterday talked about transformational games as a sort of as a coin term for serious games. We talk about games with purpose. So games that start with a learning objective, start with an audience, have a kind of a KPI. Basically, games that have a purpose. These are some of the clients we work with in the UK, so we've kind of, some of these will maybe make sense to you, some of them you won't be so familiar with, but typically a educational profile, NGOs, charities, broadcasters, and we've been working with them, these clients for probably about sort of like five to sort of like 10 years. They give us a brief and we make them a game, and in the last couple of years we've been making games about neuroscience, opium wars, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, a load of stuff, and every game we make starts with a unique brief, and every game we make tends to end up being quite unique. One of the most important things, I mean, you guys know that a game can do much more than just entertain, but the thing that we kind of like hold up as a real kind of important thing within the studio is that every game we make is fun. So we talk about fun plus. So The End was commissioned by Channel 4 Education, and Simon talked a little bit about them earlier, and Xing mentioned it as well. But over the last sort of 2 years, Channel 4 Education has been commissioning games in lots of different areas, ranging from civil liberties to kind of online privacy, entrepreneurship, financial literacy. We got a one about death, which was quite a challenge. And and actually we kind of approached it with some trepidation, really. It wasn't just death; it was actually to make death easier, which is a challenge. There's actually something in our research we kind of began to explore kind of what stuff does that, and there is actually something that some of you guys will be familiar with, and that's religion. So religion is one of those, it's a belief structure, it's a framework that allows you to make, deal with kind of like bad stuff in your life. So if you're a Christian, for example, if your mum dies, you know she's gone to heaven, and there's some comfort in that, and different religions have different kind of ways of dealing with it. The problem, as Xing mentioned, is that in the UK, 2/3 of teens in the UK are either agnostic or atheist. So, as a 14-year-old who doesn't have religion and something terrible happens to you, someone dies in your life, how do you deal with it? So we need to try and find a kind of a way of kind of getting, just helping those guys. So our kind of aim was philosophy. So we wanted to replace the crutch of religion with philosophical thinkings and concepts and ideas that maybe kind of kids of kind of 14 to 19 maybe haven't kind of like come into contact with. So we talk about the philosophy mechanic. So this is the system really that underpins the whole game. So over the next kind of like 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to talk about the philosophy mechanic and the game that sits over it, and just really kind of like the genesis of the idea and how we kind of ended up making The End, which I hope you guys have seen, but if you haven't, I'll show you some video a bit later. So I was kind of going through all my old notes, and this is the first sketch that we did for the game. And I mean, there's lots of interesting ideas in here, and the game doesn't like look like that at all now. But the idea was that there's lots of kind of interesting stuff. So, for example, you could die. So we thought maybe like to play the game, you'd have to die before you get there. So you'd have like an obituary. So like your social graph would be full of people who have died, and you'd be writing an obituary. We kind of liked the idea in a kind of slightly morbid way of being able to choose how you die. The idea that you've got in the top left-hand corner, you've got a rock cam, so when you die and you go into the game, your body slowly decomposes over a number of different, every day, so you keep coming back going, well, how decomposed am I? Interesting, just kind of some interesting ideas. But at the bottom, we wrote down the objective, which says, demystify death, presenting real facts alongside perspectives of what could or might happen. Not about religion, but a subject from three perspectives, so science, spiritualism, and philosophy. And that kind of ended up kind of being a bit of a thread that came through. But right at the bottom of the thing is a little profiler. And that became really the sort of like I guess the kind of core system for the whole game. So, next slide. So we wanted to try and present concepts and ideas to people, to teens, that we didn't know what they believed in. So we needed to try and find a way of understanding more about them as a sort of individual. And whilst, many people say they haven't got religion, some people, that's almost like a default reaction in the UK now, but there may be kind of like ideas, and they might have a view that we didn't understand. So we wanted to try and explore and understand more about the people who are playing the game. So we developed a system which is really just like a profiling system. So this is just a little video, and this is like an early prototype we made, but it's really just asking some philosophical questions that don't have a sort of right or wrong answer. But as you answer them, we begin to understand more about the individual. So you can see along the bottom you've got like a polar axis, and as this person's answering questions very, very quickly, they're moving around that polar axis. So by the end of like answering all the questions, we have a better idea of like who and what they believe in. And that became the kind of core of the game. And that's a great system, it's a bit of a rubbish game. So the challenge really for us then was to try and take that system, the idea of answering questions and us learning about them and then presenting them content and basically making it fun. So the game is this. Have a little look. Volume. So, as you would have seen, the main game takes place in the platformer. So this is Body World. There's two other worlds: there's mind and the spirit, and that's your little character there, and you can customise him or her however you want. And the kind of premise is quite simple. You enter a level, you have to try and find a key, and then you have to try and find the exit. And when we started making this game, it came out. We started making it just as Limbo came out, and Limbo's kind of almost like the perfect expression of a game about death. So it's also like the style of it was very kind of black and white. We wanted to try and come up with something that was as unique and as interesting as Limbo, but also kind of like flip the idea of maybe making a game about death, which was morbid. So we worked with a guy called Luke Pearson, who's a fantastic comic book illustrator. But we also want to try and find a unique element to the actual platform. So as you can see, the little character in the centre is casting shadows, and those shadows are the thing that's just coming up from the rock and on the underneath of the ceiling of the level there. And the idea is that you can actually solidify those shadows. So there's my little character there, there's shafts of light coming in. And I can cast and I can press E, it solidifies the shadows, and I can walk on those shadows. And that system became a really, really lovely way of kind of like putting something unique into the platformer. So you can use those to kind of cover long expanses, or you can slide objects down them, or you can even cast shadows off moving objects. So that became the kind of core, unique, fun part of the game. And like I was saying, so every level has a key and has an exit, and the idea is that, and they're not always that close to each other, but as you move around the level, you'll pick up a key, there'll be a quote that will kind of make you think about kind of what the context of that level is and some of the themes that run through it. And at the end, you get to answer a question. So the question here is, would you like to be able to choose how you die? And every time you answer that question, the game begins to record how you feel about certain things and then present content that's contextual to it. When I walk through that door, I meet a guardian. So this is the guardian from the mind world. There's another two guardians. Then I play them in a game of death cards. The Death Guards is based on, anyone who's played it in the arcade, it's based on Triple Triad, but on a hex-based grid. And we wanted to try and put just a kind of like a cerebral kind of puzzle battle game into the actual experience. But once you win and beat the Guardian, you then get a object. Now these objects are the kind of like the hook to the whole game really. So the content really kind of like ties into each of those objects, and that's the collectible element as you play the game. So you've got things like the Daredevil's helmet, and that relates to the idea that you're sort of living life to the full. So you know, someone might die, but they might die bungee jumping, but they were loving their life. Or this Frankenstein's head's about reanimation. You've got the diamond, which is about creating beauty from death and from the carbon that comes from the ashes. So every kind of like object has a different kind of significance and has a different kind of sort of story to tell, and maybe like just another concept about being able to think about death in a slightly different way. And then this is the death dial, which is what the philosophy mechanic kind of like underpins. And every time I answer a question, I move around that position. So you can see me, I'm the pink dot in the centre. And then you've got all my friends from the sort of Facebook social graph, and then you've also got famous thinkers, and then you've also got the kind of global heat map. So that's really just the kind of culmination of everyone answering questions that's slowly moving around this sort of philosophical landscape. Then as I begin to answer questions, I begin to kind of like myself understand a bit more about what I believe and where my views sit in context to other people. And we've also begun to sort of classify those as well. So I'm not sure if I can read that here, but I'm the truth teller. So the truth teller gives weight to to ideas which they believe there's firm evidence, and they don't necessarily feel that other people need to agree with them. And there's lots of other like kind of key attributes, and it also presents people that I'm also like. So I have the same belief system as Albert Einstein, and I can go and view him and explore what he believes. And there's lots of different people that you can your views can be kind of like aligned with. And then if you play the game, I was talking a lot about like content and presenting content contextually to you, but as I answer questions and the actual game understands more about what I believe, all the content gets fed around the flash site. So that's just some pages showing that. So results. So we launched this in August last year, and it's been fantastically successful. We've had 3 million levels being played so far. Average save game time is 2 hours, which equates to 11 years of sort of non-stop gaming. We've had 284,000 educational clicks, so people going off the site, visiting Wikipedia, finding out more about different kind of concepts and philosophical writings. We've had 10,000 Facebook likes. We've won Best Game at Beamer and Flash in the Can. And also we've got nominated for Games to Change Awards as well, so 2 of those, and hopefully maybe we might pick up one tomorrow. But almost the most interesting thing about this really has been the questions that have been answered. So since the game went live, we've had over 1 million questions have been answered. And we've kind of got a really good idea of like, you know, where everyone sits within that philosophical kind of like landscape. So I think there is going to be some breakout sessions after this. So I've got all the profiling of kind of everyone who's answered questions and where they sit and what was the most popular question and who answered what. So I think I'm going to try and explore that after that. And that's the end of my presentation.